Picking up players off the waiver wire is an integral part of the fantasy football experience. It's usually the difference between being a perennial playoff team and struggling to not finish last. Team management in season is pretty much a necessity. Now, if you had a difficult week one, trust me, you're not alone. Whether you started Joe Burrow or T. Higgins or played Drake London or played against Tyreek Hill, there were some pitfalls, major pitfalls this week one, and it's a long season. Don't lose hope. We're going to talk about my top ads for the week and who you should consider adding to your roster to bounce back in week two or build off of a strong week one. So, with that being said, the first thing I want to talk about is the J.K. Dobbins situation. Now, Justice Hill, Gus Edwards, split carries, both getting 8 rushes. Justice Hill got the goal line work, resulting in 2 touchdowns. That is nice. It's going to be kind of sketchy to see if that sticks going into week 2 and on. Obviously, right here, I love the efficiency of Edwards a lot more than Hill. Hill having those goal line touches leaves less potential for yardage. So I think, honestly, Justice Hill is going to be the preferred ad of the two if he continues to get that goal line work. Edwards is more efficient, making him much less touchdown dependent for value. Now you'll notice neither of these guys received any targets in the passing game, and that's kind of the reality here. So it's your call on if you'd rather hitch your wagon to a player that can get more rushing volume and be more efficient with it, or if you want to rely on touchdown-dependent players. The floor with Edwards is going to be higher. The ceiling with Hill is going to be higher. So that's kind of how you justify between the two. All right, so the next player I want to talk about is Joshua Kelly. He actually split carries 50-50 with Austin Eckler, which was pretty unexpected in my opinion. 16 carries for each, 91 rushing yards for Kelly. Obviously broke a big run in last week's game and found the end zone in the fourth quarter, I believe. Did have 1 target. Obviously, you're not adding him for that reason. More than anything, this is a handcuff ad, and that's valuable for sure. If you have that injury to Austin Eckler, Joshua Kelly becomes a very, very, very valuable running back on your roster, someone you can potentially trade for a usable piece on your team if you're weak at wide receiver or tight end or anything like that. It's someone that has temporary value if something occurs to Austin Eckler. Okay, the next guy I'm talking about is Kyren Williams. Now, you'll notice, looking at the depth chart here, Cam Akers is listed as the number 1, but 65% of the snaps went to Williams, while Akers only had 35%. 22 rushes for 29 yards and a touchdown. That touchdown was a gimme late in the game. This rushing inefficiency is really concerning. And to me, what this says is that Kyren Williams is the running back you want to roster on the Rams team, if any. Now, with the unexpected outcome of that game, the Rams beating the Seahawks in Seattle, I wouldn't necessarily expect the Rams to be winning many games this year, and neither does Vegas. But my point is, this usage and the efficiency, albeit not great, is definitely preferred to Cam Akers. So I think Kyren Williams definitely needs to be rostered in more leagues. The only downside, they play San Francisco next. That was a really tough defense for Pittsburgh to handle in week 1. And to be completely honest, their schedule coming up is not the most fantasy friendly. So this might be more of a grab and stash than a pick up and play, so to speak. All right, now the last running back on my list for week 2 ads is Roschon Johnson. Now we're going to take a look at the snap percentage usage based on this trio of Deontay Foreman as well as Khalil Herbert. So 36% of the snaps went to Herbert, 28% to Foreman, and hey, look at that, 39% to Roschon Johnson. Now this was a game where Chicago played from behind pretty much the entire time. against Green Bay in Week 1. And I expect Chicago to be playing from behind quite a bit, given that they only won 3 games last season. And so here's the other thing that we love about Roschon Johnson here. 7 targets, 6 catches. I mean, that level of volume with Justin Fields as the quarterback is pretty unprecedented. And that's exciting for fantasy managers. Also found the end zone, which you love to see. I think, honestly, this is the most preferred. Roschon is the most preferred running back of this 3, given the usage, given the involvement in the passing game. Khalil Herbert did see 5 targets, a little less efficient with his, but I think this is the guy right here. He was on the field the most, and that's really trending in the right direction for him to take over this job. And we know that rookies start slow, so by midseason, by late season, this guy could be the undisputed starter in Chicago and could potentially be a league winner. All right, we got to talk about Puka Nacua, the rookie for the Rams. This guy came out of nowhere. 10 catches on 15 targets for 119 yards. I can't imagine anyone was expecting him to fill in like this. I mean, we were all talking about, was Van Jefferson or Tyler Higbee going to be the number 1 pass catcher for the Rams with Cooper Kupp out? Well, turns out it was Puka Nacua. Who would have thought? Not me. But that being said, this is legitimate. I mean, in terms of obviously small sample size, of course, but 10 catches, 15 targets, that is fantastic volume. You're definitely going to want to pick up Puka if you're weak at wide receiver. There's a lot of depth at wide receiver, so he's not a top priority add like those running backs were before. But if you are in greater need of a wide receiver, Puka's the guy. Now, obviously, he has limited upside season long with Cooper Kupp potentially coming back as soon as week 5. But Puka's that guy. He's got that dog in him. Now, like I mentioned before with Kyren Williams, the matchups over the course of the next month worth of games, not the best. So lower expectations, possibly a grab and stash, but nonetheless, you can't argue with these numbers. This was fantastic from Puka in week 1, and pick him up. Next, I want to talk about Kendrick Bourne. Now, on first glance, you take away the 2 touchdowns. Obviously, that's great. 11 targets is really what interests me most. He outsnapped Juju Smith-Schuster, I want to say by like 60%. Okay, not that much. But 54% versus 91%. So Kendrick Bourne is on the field a lot, running routes, and basically acting as the number 1 receiver on this team. Devontae Parker did miss this game with a knee issue, I believe. Yes, knee injury. And so Devontae Parker comes back. Oh, revenge game against Miami. We'll see about that. But yeah, Devontae Parker, if he's here, this split may look a little bit differently for Bourne. But 11 targets, obviously Juju's not going to take things over in this receiving core. It's probably going to be Bourne. Based on what we saw in week 1. So I think he is a speculative add. The Miami secondary was allowing the Chargers to pass a lot. So, and let's not forget that he accomplished this against Philadelphia, which is by no means a bad secondary. So Kendrick Bourne, definitely a player to consider picking up. Before I even say it, please forgive me. I'm going to talk about Robert Woods here. I know he's been bad in fantasy over the last few years. These season finishes outside of the top 30, especially here, are not great. I get it. But we did see 10 targets, 6 catches, with the rookie C.J. Stroud throwing the ball. He returned a punt. You don't usually get points for that in fantasy, but hey, Robert Woods might be having a little bit of a resurgence here. Nico Collins, his teammate, I like as well. Obviously, rostered in more leagues. Don't pay too much attention to this number here. I've found that there's a discrepancy on the website versus the app. So take that with a grain of salt. But either way, I think both of these players are going to be the primary pass catchers for CJ Stroud. And I'm mainly focusing on Robert Woods, which this is a better example. He's not rostered in 85% of leagues, I promise you. But 75% of the snaps to Nico's 70. And those double-digit targets. Robert Woods, maybe he's got one last dance in him, and we'll see. All right, and then the last player I want to talk about, also with a rookie quarterback, is Hayden Hurst. 5 catches on 7 targets. He did only play in about half of the snaps, which you don't love to see, but he could certainly get more involved as the season goes along. What you're looking for here with a tight end is targets, efficiency, and the occasional touchdown. You can't be mad at it. Tight end typically is a bit of a crapshoot if you don't have one of the best guys, and well, a lot of the best guys are banged up or unavailable. So Hayden Hurst is definitely worth considering picking up. All right, well, that wraps up who I'm targeting in week 2 to add to the team and see if they can make an impact. Hope you enjoyed the video, learned a few things, and until next time, bye-bye.